In this world, there are first and third category healers, and one extremely powerful, unlicensed healer who operates underground is always surrounded by women. He's always ready to heal and do whatever needs to be done, as long as he's paid the price he deems fair. A young elf girl wakes up and says, "Good morning" to Xenos. Then, she heads straight to the kitchen to prepare for breakfast. A few minutes later, Xenos finally gets up, returns the good morning to the elf, and sits down to drink his black tea. According to Lily, in this world, a healer is third class if they only heal wounds, second class if they heal and comfort, and first class if they make the world a better place. By the way, the story of the Kingdom of Herzith is very much about healers, as they have greatly helped develop this nation, earning them a very important position in this society. The hospital is where healers gather to learn sophisticated healing magic and obtain their license before starting their journey as healers. However, in a corner of the kingdom, there is someone who has not received formal education and does not have a license to practice healing. Speaking of this person, after healing another patient, Xenos receives thanks and payment for his service. Seeing the low-value coins on the table, the young healer responds that he's always willing to heal, if the patient is willing to pay the price. With the departure of the attended young man, Lily remembers that today she has a house visit, and the doctor informs her that he should only return at night. With that, the elf commits to preparing dinner while the human is away. Alone now, Lily lights the fire and chops the carrot to prepare the meal in a pot, until Carmilla smells the food and comes over to see what's cooking for later. As if there's one thing that gets her excited, it's Lily's dinner. The elf asks her to leave it to her. After all, she's training to someday be Xenos' wife. Trusting her friend, Carmilla says she'll rest in the room for a while and flies off to take a nap. Then, a woman named Zofia enters the house looking for the doctor. Lily informs her that he went to make a house call, so the lady with shark-like serrated teeth decides to wait there for the young man. Honestly, she hoped to have that handsome guy all to herself if she arrived early, but luck isn't always on our side. In the following scene, it's time for Linga to enter in search of the most sought-after doctor by the female figures of Herzith. Lily gives the same warning to the Catwoman, who regrets not being able to lick Mr. Xenos entirely while receiving a stroke on the tail, or rather, as you prefer to call it. Zofia informs her that she arrived first and suggests that the beast return home. Then the two start a duel of sinister stares, until Lily joins the competition. Similarly, another woman arrives who manages to be even noisier than the others. Busting through the door, Loa came to play doctor with the doctor. Lily once again informs her that the man is out on a house visit and asks the big woman to fix the door before anything else. When the whole gang gathers, Loa deduces that they came for Lily's food, but Zofia replies that only the big woman would do that. Speaking of the little one, the petite elf collects her secret ingredient and throws it in the pot. Having done that, she invites the girls to eat there when Xenos returns, and Lo makes it clear that that was the idea. Zofia accepts since she's already there, and Linga confirms that she's going to devour the food without hesitation. Thus, Lily looks forward to the group meal and then retires to store the laundry she washed. Zofia confesses that the smell of the food is killing her, and Linga can't hold out until dinner, so she and Lo go to the pot to grab the food beforehand. Upon tasting, the big woman and the cat recognize the deliciousness of that meal, so they overstep their bounds by attacking the pot outright and shamelessly. Zofia warns that Lily won't like this at all, but upon smelling it better, she decides to try it too to see if it's to the doctor's liking. Outside, Lily was calmly doing her chores in the company of nature's animals, and this harmony brought her the peace she needed to lie down on the grass and breathe for a while. Anyway, she wonders if Xenos will come back earlier. Back in the kitchen, the Herzith sweetheart trio had the nerve to clean out the entire pot that was meant for dinner. Boldly, Linga blames the other two, so Lo takes the opportunity to do the same. Zofia questions whether the two are suffering from amnesia, and the Catwoman agrees it's a good idea to pretend they don't remember anything. The big woman suggests that they prepare more food, and the shark-toothed one thinks it's a good idea, but it was already late. Trying to maintain the peace she brought from the yard, Lily arrives and politely asks what the hell happened. Soon, the three culprits are seated at the table to tell the story, but all of them act clueless, pretending they had just arrived. With slightly less patience, Lily slams her hand on the table and repeats her question. Then Zofia spills that the smell was irresistible and she decided to taste a bit of the food. Linga argues that her arms moved on their own, while Lo admits that the stuff was too good. Seeing that the elf is getting angry, the three quickly convene and conclude that the little one is really ticked off. Linga thinks the digestion won't be good, and Lo suggests she consult with Xenos, although Zofia thinks it's a bad idea to bother the doctor with such nonsense. However, unfortunately, the fur on the Catwoman's tail is rougher than usual, but she hopes the doctor will pet it as usual. Zofia thinks it's more likely the guy would inject mayonnaise into his veins, and Linga responds that feeling jealous isn't godly. Meanwhile, Lo believes the shark tooth should be jealous of the buff body she has, even though Linga believes Xenos would prefer 1,000 times a furry tail like hers. Zofia comments that the two are losing focus of the conversation, so Linga bluntly calls the poor woman a big lizard. The lizard calls the beast a little dog, and Lo is sad to be left out of the string of gratuitous insults. Returning to the conversation, Lily makes it clear that Zeninho will be upset if the three of them fight, and that all she wanted was to have a meal with her friends. Facing such a heartfelt outpouring, Zofia lowers her head and apologizes. Linga does the same and commits to helping with another dinner, as does Lo. Either way, the elf regrets that there are no more ingredients to make another meal. Hearing this, another figure steps in to question what was just said, as it certainly does not sound good. Linga is startled and kneels before Carmilla, the ghostly creature who was eager to eat Lily's cooking and has just found out it won't be happening. Because of this, perhaps it would be good to make another stew, but this time with a soul broth to make it tastier. Having said that, the other two culprits also kneel before Carmilla, but Lily has a less hostile idea. Perhaps it would be good to bring more ingredients. Obviously, the three foodies prefer this idea and rush to get what was requested. Next, Carmilla asks if Lily shouldn't have been angrier with them, but the blonde confesses she is serene. In turn, if they had drunk Carmilla's beverages, she would have cursed all the girls. The elf responds that she acts more calmly because she is mature and likes it when everyone is together. For her, the real problem is not knowing if she will manage to prepare the food by the time Xenos returns. Speaking of the doctor, he walks through the city streets in the late afternoon, until a girl passes by him in pain. A man with a malicious tone of voice emerges behind her after searching for her all over. The girl argues that she went to the hospital because of a stomachache but ended up not being seen due to lack of money. The man grabs the girl's hair and makes it clear that having a stomachache is not enough for a slave to take a break. Then he takes her away violently. The man takes the beast girl to a cemetery and throws her onto an old, dirty tombstone, which he believes is perfect for a semi-human like her. In the midst of this, a shadow emerges from the tomb and enters the woman. Unnoticed, the owner of the servant kicks her belly hard and with disdain and then leaves, saying that the slave will only be fed if she shows results. That said, she gets up and tears the man's stomach open eagerly, as an energetic mass contours her body, as if adding to that disproportionate strength. Seeing that things are heating up, the man runs through a part of the city that is in ruins, screaming for help, until he comes again to Xenos. He pleads for the boy's interference, but Xenos criticizes the self-centeredness of the individual. The man argues that he was just doing his job, but changes the subject when he explains that it was just something related to agriculture. Either way, he is severely injured and is willing to pay if the boy can do something. Thus, at the same moment that the beast emerges again to attack her master, the healer pushes the victim's body to prevent him from dying. With irony, Xenos asks what happened to make the girl so angry. Then he dodges the stones she throws at him. The owner of the servant asks the young man to end the girl, but Xenos refuses, since his job is not to kill people. Outraged, the aggressor insists that an aristocrat like him could not end up dead over such a trifle, and that it's just a matter of buying another slave in her place if she dies. Upon hearing this, Xenos is carried to a traumatic memory and clarifies that his role is to save as many people as he can. At that moment, the semi-human throws a huge rock at the healer, but he imbues his fist with mana and destroys the stone into pieces. The noble is startled and wants to know what kind of healer is capable of doing this. The woman moves swiftly across the battlefield, and the doctor knows that her speed is unusual even for her race. Regardless, with a magic shield, he repels an attack he suffers and isolates the attacker towards a destroyed house. Already weakened, the building lets its wall fall, crushing the aristocrat. After resolving the conflict, Xenos goes to the demi-human to lift her up, but the girl seems too scared to accept help. Additionally, the malevolent aura that surrounds her manifests again with force around her body, so the doctor understands that she is possessed. Then he places his own arm in the girl's mouth and uses his healing to expel the intruder. Trying to understand what kind of agriculture involves servants being possessed by spirits of the dead, the healer destroys that malignant manifestation and treats the wound. Seeing that the boy healed the servant's broken leg in seconds, the aristocrat emerges from the debris and recognizes that this doctor is incredibly powerful. Thinking this, he pleads for help, but Xenos replies that his shift is over for today, so he asks if he can see the man tomorrow. The noble explains that by tomorrow he will already be dead and demands to be healed right now, so the doctor requires an additional payment. Several gold coins are handed over to him, but this is far from what Xenos would like to receive. After all, he is an underground healer and has no license. Therefore, he asks to take the aristocrat's slave as compensation. Thus, the noble agrees and is healed. Xenos takes the beast woman to his house, informs her that he has purchased her, and asks her name. When the girl replies that her name is Till, the man tells her to undress, as her purchase was expensive, and he needs to know if the servant is in good condition. After hesitating for a few moments, the girl does what was commanded. Then Xenos discovers that she has a gallstone, which causes inflammation. Without delay, he completely heals the semi-human, who does not understand how he was able to do this without any enchantment or magic circle. Naturally, she thanks him for it, but her master would like her to also show service beyond just thanking. Till assures that the master can ask whatever he wants, so he hands her a notebook and asks her to look for something. Immediately, the servant set out in search of what had been requested and came upon a plant that was exactly what he had been looking for. Not quite understanding everything, she wanted to know if the job was just that, as she thought there might be more for her to do. However, the healer assured her that her work was done. Even more confused, Till claimed she was still in debt. But as Xenos had already said, she had paid what she owed. In fact, he explained that he always demands a fair price for the work he does, and pays a fair price for what he expects others to do. In Till's case, she found the leaves that he could not have found on his own, which means their value was equal to what the doctor had done for the semi-human. Thus, their debts were settled. With that, the boy tore up the servitude contract and informed her that her life was now her own. Overjoyed, Till admitted she didn't exactly know what she wanted to do from now on, but she was going to live to find out, and she would come back to tell the doctor when she did. Moreover, she wanted to know if she could return one day to see Mr. Xenos again, and he confirmed that she could always count on him as a clandestine doctor, as long as she had some payment to offer, of course. After their interaction, the doctor returned home and was greeted by Lily, who promptly informed him that the food wasn't ready yet. Just then, the three dinner thieves arrived with the ingredients. Along with them, Carmilla appeared to comment that Xenos seemed to have had so much fun it was as if he'd met a new girl. After teasing him, she disappeared just as she had appeared, while Lily celebrated that they could make a lot of food with everything they had brought. Xenos could hardly wait, while Lily committed to making black tea for everyone to enjoy together. After this, we see a man toss a gold coin in front of Xenos, perhaps something he'd never seen in his entire life, the kind of reward the poor never receive. The healer asks Astan what he's implying. Astan, accompanied by his companions, reveals bluntly that they no longer need the healer. Xenos argues he's done so much for them, reminding Astan how he'd claimed they were friends. Hearing this, everyone bursts into laughter, and Astan sneers that the kid remains as naive as when he was a child. In truth, anyone would have done as long as they were disposable and could conveniently serve as a human shield. According to the leader, the poor are just cattle, and it's laughable for livestock to think it's part of the group merely because it's being fed. Xenos insists he was crucial in helping the team become prominent, but the warrior dismisses him sharply, unwilling to let the healer claim any credit using the shady magic he learned on his own. At this crucial moment, their team must impress royalty and aristocracy, and having a filthy pauper among them would only ruin their chances. Therefore, the gold coin is merely a parting gift, enough money for Xenos to go wherever he pleases, as long as he keeps quiet about ever having been a member of the Golden Phoenix. Accepting the money, Zenos walks away under the mocking laughter of his former teammates. Meanwhile, on that memorable night in Herzith, a young elf girl is assaulted in the street by two thugs drawn to the rarity of her race. The girl manages to break free from the man holding her and sprints away, but the assailant fires an arrow into her calf, causing her to collapse. Still fighting, she bites his hand as he tries to grab her again, prompting the thug to viciously retaliate with a knife. Amid this cowardly scene, Zenos wanders aimlessly through the streets, wondering what he'll do with his life, until he hears someone screaming. When he arrives, the female thug scolds her companion for stabbing their precious merchandise. Seeing the child severely bleeding on the ground, Zenos immediately offers his gold coin to buy her. Since the elf was dying anyway, the woman readily accepts the offer and leaves without further questions, satisfied with at least making a profit. Once the attackers are gone, the girl asks weakly if she's going to die. But the healer does something incredible, completely healing her in the blink of an eye so quickly that she doesn't even comprehend what happened. Overwhelmed, the elf cries with relief and joy. Zenos asks her name, and she introduces herself as Lily, feeling sorry that the man had to spend his money on her. But he reassures her, telling the girl not to feel guilty. Eventually, he introduces himself as an underground healer without any official license, who learned his craft entirely on his own. When he asks Lily where she lives, he discovers she doesn't even have a home, and the growl of her stomach reveals she hasn't eaten for some time either. Seeing this, the healer decides their first priority should be getting her new clothes and some food. They immediately head to a tavern for dinner, and Lily devours her meal as if it were the best she'd ever tasted. Delighted, she wonders aloud why he's not eating as well. But Zenos says he's simply not hungry, though the truth is he's now completely out of money. As Lily eats, he reflects on what he'll do with her next. Perhaps placing her in an orphanage in the slums would be the sensible thing. But just imagining the way she'd be treated there makes him quickly abandon that idea. Lily then asks Zenos about his work, and he confesses he was just kicked out of his group, leaving him with nowhere to go himself. His best option at the moment is simply to find employment. Suddenly, a lizardman stumbles into the tavern, wounded and begging desperately for a glass of water. Zenos quickly notices the bullet wound and burn mark on the man's arm, clearly the result of magical weaponry. The lizard confirms he was shot by mistake and just wants the agony to end. Seeing this, the tavern's healer rises to offer aid, but upon noticing the seriousness of the injury, he decides to add an enchantment to ensure a safer recovery. Right away, he performs the healing, and the matter is resolved in mere moments. In disbelief, the injured man asks the healer's name, prompting Lily to proudly announce her new friend's identity. Though unfamiliar with the name, the grateful lizardman gives Zenos 4 gold coins as payment, leaving the tavern in high spirits. However, Zenos becomes unusually quiet afterward, prompting Lily to ask what's wrong. Suddenly realizing that just as you pay restaurants for food, healers should also be compensated for their services, he's struck by inspiration. Recalling Lily's heartfelt gratitude when he healed her and realizing no one had ever sincerely thanked him before, he decides at that very moment to open a clinic to help those in need. The catch is, because he's from the slums, he won't be able to get a proper license, meaning he'll have to open an underground clinic and operate illegally. Ironically, Lily thinks this is wonderful and eagerly volunteers to help in any way she can. Zenos questions whether dragging a child into illegal business is a wise move. But as Lily herself points out, she was technically purchased by him, and she's happy to serve under legalized slavery terms. In truth, Zenos was just trying to help and never intended to own a slave. But Lily has nowhere else to go, and abandoning her on the streets wouldn't do her any favors. Agreeing with her reasoning, Zenos decides to care for the girl until he can find her a permanent home. In turn, Lily promises to serve her master devotedly, but Zenos kindly requests she avoid making statements that could be misunderstood. After leaving the tavern, the two head towards a rundown neighborhood, where Zenos expresses his desire to open the clinic amidst the rubble. Lily comments that this doesn't seem like a busy area for starting a business, to which the man explains this part of town is abandoned, perfect for an illegal operation, as setting one up downtown wouldn't exactly be smart. Searching for a house that's at least minimally livable, Zenos finally finds a home to call his own, a charming mansion that could have been plucked straight out of Berlin, circa 1945, after the Soviet invasion. Lily admits it's nice to have a place to stay and all, but honestly, this dump looks exactly like a haunted mansion, and running into a specter inside wouldn't be cool at all. Confused, Xenos asks what she's talking about, prompting Lily to clarify that specters are among the strongest undead monsters. They resemble people, but one touch is all it takes to drain the life out of you until you become nothing but a pit of despair and suffering. In the end, you turn into a ghost forced to obey their every command. In the next scene, Xenos is already opening the mansion's door and walking right in, clearly showing how much he cares about the elf girl's opinion. Seeing how things stand, Lily resorts to some kind of prayer, invoking a radiant, sacred light that drives away darkness and illuminates their path. Xenos, caught by surprise, learns that the girl can actually perform basic magic. With proper lighting now allowing them a good look around, he feels grateful to have finally found a roof over his head. Back in his days with the Golden Phoenix adventurers, he'd spent most nights alone and sleeping outdoors. Plus, the beams here are still sturdy, and with a thorough cleaning, this place would be perfect for living. However, Lily spots a shadowy figure passing by and begins disagreeing even more intensely with her master's assessment. She hides behind him for protection as both suddenly see a spirit floating down the stairs, demanding they surrender the scent of life to her. Lily cries out that this is definitely a specter, but Xenos remains calm as if nothing special is going on. According to him, he'd already guessed someone would be living here, as the house was way too good to be simply vacant. Either way, the specter lunges at the young man, who responds swiftly with healing magic, repelling the attack and disintegrating the ghost's arms. Once that's settled, Xenos casually explains that he's already defeated around 100 just like her back with his former team. For instance, one day Aston got moody and tossed the healer into the depths of an underground labyrinth full of these creatures. That's how Xenos knows healing magic is their weakness. Therefore, he kindly asks the resident ghost if she wouldn't mind lending him a portion of her home. Unable to accept this humiliation, the specter tries attacking again, only to quickly discover she can't handle this intruder alone. It's an unpleasant shock since no mortal had ever given Carmilla, the queen of specters, any trouble before. Determined, she summons her servants to dispose of the intruders. Lily panics even harder, crying out desperately for help, while Xenos scratches his head, regretting that a peaceful solution is out of the question. He immediately casts High Heal, obliterating all minor specters like dust in the wind. Shocked, Carmilla asks who exactly this human is. Xenos simply replies that he's nobody special, just an underground healer. Returning to the matter at hand, he apologizes for intruding, but emphasizes it'd really help him to have a place to sleep and some space to treat his patients. With no other choice, the ghost reluctantly grants the first floor to the human, keeping the second floor to herself. Lily can't decide whether she's happy or horrified by this arrangement. Sometime later, they've cleaned up the place, transforming it into something resembling a real clinic. Speaking of which, Lily suggests they take advantage of the nurse outfit they've prepared, using it to advertise the clinic around town. However, Xenos doesn't want the royal hospital becoming suspicious, preferring to let clients find them naturally instead. As luck would have it, someone actually appears the moment Xenos finishes saying that, and it turns out to be the lizardman he'd healed a few days prior at the tavern. To everyone's surprise, Xenos had already anticipated this visit. After all, someone suffering from a magical burn wound isn't likely to be just anyone. They typically have good reasons for avoiding regular hospitals. Impressed by the human's perceptiveness, the lizard introduces himself as Zond and asks if the healer could examine his older sister. The woman steps forward, revealing a gruesome injury caused by a magical gunshot wound. Examining the wound, Xenos believes it must have been inflicted by a poisonous magical weapon. The bullet is still lodged inside, and the surrounding flesh is decaying. She asks if he figured all that out from just one look, and the healer explains he'd nearly been turned into a guinea pig for experiments himself once. Come to think of it, he's planning on teaching those guys a lesson someday. Anyway, after further inspection, Xenos concludes her arm is beyond saving, suggesting amputation before the poison spreads any further. With a resigned sigh, like she'd just lost $5 at a bakery, the woman asks how much this little joke will cost her. Calmly, the doctor states 1 million yen. Her brother immediately protests such a steep price, but she tells him to relax, she'll handle it. Curious, she asks if he's sticking to this price, knowing she's Zofia, the tornado. Hearing this, Xenos realizes he has just scored a significant first client. After all, he knows Zofia is one of the 3 bosses who run the slums, leader of the lizard folk, and a heroine among the oppressed community members who steals from corrupt merchants to support the poor. Nevertheless, Tornado demands to be convinced why she should pay 1,000,000 yen for an amputation. Xenos clarifies he wouldn't charge that amount unless he intended to regenerate her limb entirely. Besides, he's not about to accept anyone acting arrogant in his own clinic, whether they're a queen of the hill or the Pope himself. He just expects to be paid well for his excellent services. In disbelief, Zofia admits she's never heard of a healer who can regenerate limbs. Equally surprised, Xenos had no idea other healers couldn't do it. At any rate, with the patient's permission, the doctor begins the treatment by summoning a scalpel made purely of mana. Zofia finds herself once again astonished by yet another hidden talent of this guy, something Xenos doesn't really get. After all, how else could other doctors possibly perform incisions? Setting those thoughts aside, he applies a healing spell to the affected area to numb the pain, and then proceeds to cut Zofia's arm open. According to him, this is where things get complicated. First, he casts a defensive spell to stop the bleeding, simultaneously applying healing magic to drastically amplify the regeneration of the wounded area. Then, methodically, he restores the bones in the arm first, followed by nerves, blood vessels, muscles, and finally, the skin. Once completed, the Tornado has a brand new arm. Exhausted after flawlessly performing such a procedure, the healer takes a seat to catch his breath. Everyone is stunned by what they've just witnessed. Zahn points to something hanging upside down, asking what that weird thing is, and the doctor explains it's their housemate, a specter. Carmilla comments bitterly that she wishes the human had just died already and leaves. Zahn grows a bit concerned, but Xenos reassures him the ghost girl is actually pretty friendly. Zofia bursts out laughing, remarking that this doctor is as brilliant as he is hilarious, and because she liked him so much, she promises to send her subordinates to Xenos for healing, guaranteeing excellent payment in return. Later that same day, Lily prepares tea for her master and receives a gentle pat on the head, but Xenos can't understand why she's prepared 3 cups. The elf is about to explain that their other resident also enjoys some tea when suddenly the specter herself appears out of thin air, blowing softly on her cup to avoid burning her mouth. Honestly, Xenos finds this concern somewhat peculiar coming from the Queen of Specters. Carmilla seizes the opportunity to tell the human to worry about his own life instead. Lily celebrates the clinic's recent influx of new patients since Zofia's visit, although Carmilla finds it boring that nobody has died yet. Just as she says this, she absent-mindedly takes a sip of the hot tea, burns her tongue, and rushes upstairs. The elf wonders aloud why lizard men are constantly injured, and Xenos speculates it's due to the ongoing war between factions in the slums, 3 of which are composed of demi-humans, primarily lizard men and orcs who are perpetually in conflict. The young man was about to reveal the 3rd race involved when suddenly a loud crash outside the clinic interrupts him, prompting him to guess that the final group has just discovered their location. Moments later, the clinic door bursts open, and in storms a dozen aggressive, intimidating humanoid wolves, led by a woman who introduces herself as Linga, leader of the werewolves from the slums. She demands to know if she's speaking to Xenos, the clandestine healer. Xenos recalls that Linga, known as the Tyrant, controls all illegal gambling operations in the underworld, and he finds it oddly fascinating to see what kind of clients he's attracting. Regardless, the doctor politely informs her that clinic hours have ended for the day, unless it's an emergency. Linger responds bluntly that the emergency is Xenos himself. Her gang is locked in a fierce battle against the lizard faction, yet their rivals keep coming back as if their numbers never dwindle. Eventually discovering the involvement of this clandestine healer, she has decided he needs to be eliminated. As she declares this, Linger raises an axe and smashes it into the clinic's floor, cracking the tiles dramatically. Next, she aims a precise, deadly strike at Xenos' neck, but her attack abruptly halts against a magical shield protecting him. Realizing the situation is escalating, Xenos quietly advises Lily to wait in the back. Linga orders her subordinates to attack the healer, but no matter what they attempt, nothing harms him. It's as if he's made of titanium. Frustrated, the werewolf leader orders her pack to destroy the clinic instead. Xenos tries to warn them against this, but no one listens. Suddenly, the Queen of Specters herself descends from upstairs, fully prepared to obliterate the intruders. Surprisingly though, it's Zenos who asks Carmilla to reconsider her actions. After all, the first floor is his responsibility, and besides, it's a place dedicated to saving lives, not ending them. Nevertheless, he thanks her for getting upset on his behalf, leaving the ghost flustered and causing her to quietly retreat. Ultimately, since werewolves are nocturnal creatures fearful of supernatural beings lurking in the dark, Linga quickly surrenders to the healer, mistakenly believing he commands a powerful specter. The following day, an orc enters the clinic and announces that his faction leader, Lady Lo, requests an audience with the clandestine healer. With a weary sigh, Zenos had a hunch this was coming. After dealing with lizards and werewolves, orcs were the obvious next hurdle. By the way, he recalls that their leader is someone significant who made a fortune mining mana stones. It's only been a month since the doctor opened his clinic, and practically every slumlord has already stepped foot in there. Speaking of which, Zenos wonders if the orc leader is a reasonable person, and the warrior assures him that she is as wise as she is honorable. Reflecting on this, Zenos notes that at least Zofia has been leaving expensive gifts at the clinic every day, and Linga is building a veritable palace next door as compensation for the mess she caused. If the orc boss is anything like these two, there shouldn't be much trouble. Zenos queries why the woman hasn't come herself, and the soldier responds that he would never bring the chief to a place where werewolves and lizards are constantly coming and going, especially since she can barely move. Given the gravity of the situation, the underground healer ends up making a personal visit to the patient, being taken to the absolute middle of nowhere, deep within a mana cave, to meet the much-discussed sovereign of that race. Once there, Lo was visibly pleased on her throne by the doctor's presence. He asks how she came to know of his services, and she admits she would have preferred not to know, given how famous his work has become in the slums following his recent services. Naturally, the werewolves and lizards did their best to hide this rare gem, but Loa decided to investigate on her own and finally struck gold. Zenos is annoyed that his clandestine clinic is more famous in the ghetto than the Syrian-Lebanese hospital, while Lo points out that, from what she's heard, the young man can perform any kind of healing if the price is right, and he confirms that working for free is a bit tiring. Anyway, the orc mentions that she can't move from her spot at the moment and would love to know why. Zenos sees that he's being tested in front of everyone, but he has no choice but to examine the case. Then, he scans the patient's body internally, as there are no visible external injuries. Lo has never seen a doctor do this before, and she has no idea how these guys heal people without thoroughly investigating their bodies. By the way, he discovers a lump in her belly and feels the mana surrounding the object. Lo confirms it's a mana stone enchanted with explosion, and with a ridiculously high potency. Zenos asks if someone put it in her food, but she confesses she mistook it for a rice cake and swallowed it. Out of patience, Zenos heads for the exit, assuring that the gang's queen will soon pass this thing, and she doesn't even need to go to the restroom thrown for it. However, Lo explains that it's not so simple, as she chewed the stone partially, and it won't be long until it detonates, and the orc doesn't want to make any sudden movements precisely to avoid provoking this. The other problem is that her men don't want to leave her side, always swearing to die beside the chief for nothing if she goes up in flames. Thus, Zenos questions what she wants him to do, and Lo is willing to donate her wealth to him. If this stone detonates, it'll be the end of the orcs from the slum, and the leader would rather leave her wealth with someone who would make good use of it. Lo has heard that while the healer charges dearly for his service, he examines underprivileged children for free, and she's also a fan of the little ones. With that, the monster tosses a key to the human. He asks if it's been long since Lo ingested this mana stone, and when she confirms, he walks towards her, summons a scalpel, and plunges it into the chief's belly, making the subordinates lose their minds. However, Zenos raises his hand with the stone and leaves everyone dumbfounded. Lo asks what in tarnation just happened, and he informs her that he opened her stomach, removed the object, and then sealed it up completely. Though impressed, Lo warns the doctor to be careful with this explosive, so Zenos wraps the stone with both hands and triggers a detonation that could be heard and felt outside the cave. Despite this, Zenos was without a single scratch. After all, he protected his hands with defensive magic. Of course, it hurt quite a bit, so he had to apply healing. In the end, the man returns the key to the orc, and she simply can't believe that this guy turned down her entire fortune like that. Zenos responds that he only demands payment equivalent to the service provided, and this seems a bit much. Lo bursts out laughing and confesses she liked this madman, so much so that she now considers him the savior of the orc race, and she can count on them for whatever is needed, including 24-hour personal security. Actually, Zenos would prefer if these people didn't do that at all. After surviving the risk of turning to dust, the orc felt a monstrous hunger, so she pulls out 2 rice cakes and offers them to the doctor, but he prefers to eat at home. Speaking of home, a few days later, back at his residence, Zenos notices Lily is a bit down, and she explains that Zofia, Linga, and Lo have been visiting a lot lately. Thinking about it now, the guy agrees, since Zofia shows up on the day of the moon, Linga on the day of water, and Lo on the day of gold, and none of them are injured, sick, or anything like that. So the doctor doesn't understand why they keep coming there. Lily wonders if he can't even guess the reason, so he supposes that the 3 of them have a lot of free time. Lily was about to give her opinion, but Carmilla interrupts to say it's love. Definitely, these women are in love with Zenos. He responds that this is ridiculous, seeing as he's just an unlicensed healer operating outside the law, but the 3-year-old Spectre's eyes don't lie. Whenever she watches from the ceiling, they look at him like women truly smitten. Lily admits she's worried, since the 3 are quite beautiful, and Zenos adds that they are also quite troublesome. Finding it funny, Carmilla assures that it's only a matter of time before the next war between factions is over the kingdom's most delectable healer, so it's good for Lily to choose her weapons soon. For her part, the elf remembers she's too much of a tomboy for that, and doesn't come close to the allure of the others. But the Spectre assures that all 4 smitten maidens are equally beautiful. Zenos can't even laugh at this nonsense, just thinking about how absurd it would be. It turns out he didn't even need to think about it anymore, because the nightmare was about to become reality. Sometime later, the first to appear at the clinic is Zofia, the tornado, announcing that she's about to declare war against rival gangs, and wants to know if Zenos is willing to join the lizard men. Following her was Linga, the tyrant. According to her, the time for reckoning had come, and Zenos must join the Lupines for the conflict. Lastly, Lo came to give his message. Thus, a war was set between the 3 factions, with Zenos at the pivot of the chaos, having received generous gifts from each leader to secure his participation. Carmilla jokes that many will die because of the doctor's honey stick, while Lily keeps pouting at every turn. The next day, the fight between the groups begins at noon in an abandoned arena on the outskirts. Accompanied by their soldiers, the 3 leaders meet in the center of the ring. Zofia praises the courage of the other 2 for showing up, knowing they're going to die. Linga finds the joke terrible and promises to show her enemies just how lenient she has been with them from the start. Lastly, Lo ridicules the notion that the opponents think they can face orcs in a mortal combat. In the midst of this, Zenos shouts from the stands to grab everyone's attention. He claims he's not there to stop the fight, since the conflicts between these groups have lasted for years and years, and obviously, there is a lot of resentment built up among everyone. In fact, he only came to say that they should fight until they are satisfied. Lily couldn't be more confused, while the leaders decide that the winner will take the doctor's chastity once the enemies are dead. Without delay, Zofia draws her daggers and nearly hits Linga's neck, who escapes at the last moment, before her head could roll across the arena. Lo launches herself flying at the lizard, who also dodges with skill, sending the orc flying like a bomb onto the gangs. Linga doesn't take it lightly and strikes her attacker with her 2-handed axe, forcing Zofia to block with difficulty. Once again, the brute comes charging with another flying kick, creating a hole in the battlefield, while the lizard leader, after dodging the impact, faces the orc battalion and manages to make some victims along the way. Linga knocks down the lizards in front of her, while Lo crushes the skull of a werewolf who could do nothing to react. From there, the conflict becomes generalized and continues intensely until late afternoon for a good reason. All the combatants agree on one thing: no matter how much they beat and tear at the opponents, they simply don't fall to the ground. Zofia feels her wounds regenerating, until Zenos speaks up again to remind everyone that he didn't come to stop their little scuffle. But since all involved are his patients, he will continue healing each one of them to the end. Realizing that continuing this war is like punching a wall, Zofia sits on the ground feeling foolish for not having realized the situation earlier. Linga has never heard of a healer capable of restoring so many at once, and Lo declares that this fight will never end. Zenos agrees, of course, but not just because of his medical intervention, but because of the infinite feeling of vengeance that crosses generations of each race present and ensures that the conflict will never end, as there are always scores to settle. As such, it's fine for the factions to continue the war, but know that Zenos will charge for each regeneration he performs. Soon, the three leaders burst out laughing and agree that it's not worth giving vent to all this hatred in such a way, so they declare that the war has just ended. Zofia recalls an orc saying, "To offer forgiveness is to have strength." With that, the three clench their fists in the air and decide there's only one fight left worth fighting. Zenos asks what they are talking about, and Lily comments that this guy really is the biggest Chad in the kingdom. Putting that aside, she questions why he intervened in this way, and Zenos shares that he once had a mentor who said, "A healer is third-rate if he only heals wounds, second-rate if he heals and comforts, and first-rate if he makes the world a better place." Interested, the elf wants to know what this mentor was like, and Zenos confesses that she was weird but an impressive person. Because of the mentor, even though he considers himself a third-rate healer, Zenos wants to make the slum a better place. Or at least that's the speech he's going to adopt, because if no one else from the slum gets hurt, the doctor will lose his job. After noting that the guy is a real smart aleck, Lily also points out that she likes the guy. He responds the same, but she gets pissed because he didn't understand the tone of her phrase, even though she doesn't want to explain what exactly she meant. Be that as it may, Zenos, who is no fool, announces that it's time to charge for the consultation and head home. The next day, the commander of the division of the Kingdom of Herzith calls the Vice Commander Krishna after hearing worrying rumors about a territorial conflict among the semi-humans in the slums. Although it's a many-year-old dispute that everyone knows well, the kingdom can no longer allow it to run freely, as Herzith has thrived under its strict hierarchy system, with royalty at the top. The citizens take out their frustration on the poor, who in turn take it out on each other, and this is what maintains the balance of this society, according to the commander. What scares him is the possibility of the poor uniting, as that would be a threat to the aristocracy, the ruling class. The king is like the sun to the people, and it is the duty of the Order of Knights to defend the capital where their ruler resides. Krishna doesn't understand where the commander is getting the idea that there is a peacemaker among the factions, because they have always deeply hated each other and will never unite. There is not a single being capable of getting between the tornado, the tyrant, and the mighty. About this, the commander agrees, but this goes against the rumor he heard. Apparently, there really is a peacemaker among the gangs, who was able to mediate the three and pacify the conflict, risking even a supposed union among them. Whether it's just a poorly told story or not, the army can't ignore this, so it's Krishna's mission, the Iron Rose, to arrest the rebel who threatens to unite the poor against the ruling class. In the meantime, Zenos sneezes for the 10th time in 30 seconds, starting to worry Lily. The gang leaders, for their part, take advantage of the poor man's illness to satisfy their deepest desires, offering the warmth the doctor deserves with their own bodies. Trying to maintain professionalism, Zenos finishes treating Zofia, and Lily notes that it had been a while since the lizard woman needed treatment. Zofia jokes about nearly signing up for the house's health plan due to her frequent visits, and the healer reminds her that this isn't a club because the woman comes even when there's no problem to solve. In fact, Tornado mentions that she had a fight yesterday with soldiers from the Order, as they are keeping an eye on the gang. Zenos recalls that the first time he treated the caterpillar, she and her brother were also injured by soldiers, and she confirms they were caught when they tried to sneak into an aristocrat's mansion to borrow some items. Speaking of which, Zond remembers there was a crazy woman shooting with that magical flame weapon, the deputy commander known as Iron Rose, who always opens a portal to hell during her appearances and maintains an expression of indifference on her face while the flames scorch the earth. Carmilla smiles, imagining the mess that would ensue if all the fiery women of this kingdom suddenly clashed all at once. Zenos thinks he's free of this worry. After all, the royal knights wouldn't go after a clandestine healer working in a pigsty. But the persistent specter of Carmilla assures him that's not quite the case. Ignoring the warnings, the doctor invites Lily to lunch. Then the three gangsters butt in uninvited. Zofia wants salad, while Linga wants fish, and Loa wants meat. In turn, Zenos makes it clear that nobody asked them. But the truth is he no longer had any control over his own clinic, which was decidedly dominated by the kingdom's most dangerous criminals. During the meal, before going upstairs for a nap, Carmilla reminds Zenos that he is the only one in the kingdom capable of keeping those three in line, and the young man feels like a beast tamer with this information. In the slums, races that were once sworn enemies began to live together in harmony, and Krishna can hardly believe it when she arrives on the hill and sees the friendly atmosphere. She approaches a random lizard and notes that his race seems to be getting along well with the werewolves and orcs, and the man replies that they aren't so bad once you get to know them slowly. The officer asks what happened to the war between the races. Then the lizard realizes he can't go any further and walks away, emphasizing that he doesn't want to draw attention. From there, Krishna loses her temper and points her pistol at the lizard's belly, but he still refuses to answer, as they all owe a lot to that man. In the midst of this, the lizard sees Zofia and Zond passing by, then shouts the names of the bosses. Quickly, Krishna leaves there to avoid trouble within enemy territory. Upon seeing the lizard leaders, she remembers that the siblings should have been missing an arm, but they regenerated as if by miracle. In search of answers and direction, as she got lost in the outskirts of the slum, the deputy commander reaches Zeno's clinic and asks how to get back to the city. At that moment, Lily appears, and the human realizes she is facing an elf, then points her gun at Zeno's and fires a projectile that emits a purple cloud at the healer. Frankly, the officer hadn't expected to encounter another target in such a place, as she was working a different case while also investigating a series of child kidnappings. Noticing that the elf and the human weren't related, Krishna immediately became suspicious and decided to act. Lily tried to explain to the woman that she had been taken in by Zenos, not abducted, but the human insisted that human trafficking was illegal unless conducted through proper channels. Then, Lily made it clear that the boy had saved her, which made the deputy commander realize she had made a mistake. But regardless, the ammunition she had fired wasn't lethal, though the healer would still be out for a while. After all, she's a perfectionist at her job, but her only flaw is her short fuse. Out of nowhere, Zenos himself, now awake, corrected her, saying that her only flaw was actually her terrible sense of direction. Surprised by the situation, the officer apologized for acting rashly, but wanted to understand how the boy was unharmed. Zenos explained that he had simply used defensive magic, which Krishna didn't understand, as it shouldn't have been enough to stop her magical weapons. With that, she approached the man and verified that he indeed had no injuries, commenting that these days, many unusual things happen. For his part, Zenos replied that getting shot by someone he'd never met fell into that category for him. Krishna then asked if the young man was some sort of renowned sorcerer who had dedicated his life to defensive arts from an early age and had mastered this field of study to be known as the one who worked hard for defensive magic. First of all, Zenos said she was wrong. Second, he stated that she was terrible with names. The thing is, you might fool others, but Krishna assured that no one could fool the deputy commander of the Royal Knights Order. Hearing the woman's important title, Zenos and Lily were astounded, while Krishna demanded that the young man cooperate with the investigation. Given the gravity of the situation, Zenos hung a flag from the ceiling to signal that no one should approach the clinic, then sat down with Krishna to see what she really wanted. The officer revealed that she was in the slums on a secret mission to locate and arrest an individual. Zenos found it curious that the woman was disclosing all this, given that the mission was supposed to be secret, but she replied that it was every citizen's duty to cooperate with the Order of Knights. Since that was the case, he asked whom she was looking for, and she whispered, "The mediator, the one who had settled the disputes among the factions in the slums." Zenos spat out his tea the moment he heard this, while Carmilla appeared with that look that spelled trouble. As a defender of order, Krishna could not ignore someone who held such power, but she assured that she hadn't taken anything from the semi-humans, even after threatening them. Since this person seemed to have a good handle on controlling these races, the woman had no doubts that he was a servant of the devil. Zenos argued that perhaps the guy just didn't want to stand out, and that leaving him be might be the best option. Krishna then asked if he knew the mediator, but Zenos replied that it was just his intuition talking. The problem, according to the officer, was that allowing someone like that to act of their own volition could pose a threat to the entire nation in the future. Lily didn't believe the mediator was thinking on such a scale, as even though he was strict about money, She bet he didn't like to see people getting hurt. From what the elf had said, Krishna asked if she knew the wanted person, but the little one desperately replied that she didn't. Either way, Krishna had already figured it would be difficult to track the suspect's trail, indicating that their conversation had come to an end. Zenos then committed to showing the way to town, and even though the woman noted that this guy seemed very eager for her to leave, she decided to get up to depart. On her way out, she questioned why there was a bed in the middle of the room, and Zenos lied that he had been thinking of throwing it out, so he had left it there. With that, the deputy commander asked if she could use the bed to sleep, as she needed to find a base of operations for her mission, and believed this place was perfect, making it clear she would pay for her stay. Following this, Carmilla emerged from behind and quietly commented that the owner of the clinic was ready to take in yet another dangerous woman into his life. Later, Krishna was welcomed more calmly, so Lily served her a hot drink. Unable to drink it, the fighter admitted that her only flaw was her sensitivity to high-temperature beverages, prompting Zenos to tally yet another only flaw this person claimed to have. Amid this, Lily looked displeased and told the doctor to give her a lap and do the usual. After the initial shock, the boy understood what she wanted and began to stroke the elf's head. Carmilla reappeared to make it clear that the little one was jealous, and Krishna was confused to see that the young man was talking to no one behind him, as the specter was invisible. Carmilla explained that Lily was trying to show off in front of the stranger who had appeared, unwilling to accept the arrogant one who had shot Zenos without reason with a magical weapon. Either way, the ghost could hardly wait for the next chapters of this drama, as this plot was sure to catch fire. Speaking of Lily, she noticed that her friend's tea was still hot and warned she would blow on it for him. She then offered to comb his hair and put an apple in the boy's mouth. Seeing that Krishna wasn't bothered by this, the elf decided to use the secret weapon Carmilla had taught her, then grabbed Zenos' face and began to say she wouldn't let him sleep tonight. However, before she could finish what she wanted to say, the poor girl passed out on the spot and was laid down to rest on the bed. Now alone with Zenos, Krishna recalls that, according to him, the elf was captured by slave traders, so she wants to know who they are. Zenos confesses he has no idea, and the officer notes that there is a hub of illegal child trade in this area. The man asks if that's why he was shot, and the woman apologizes once more, emphasizing that her only flaw is her short temper. Despite this, she still needs to be perfect for the royal guard, like a heroine of the people, so one fault is passable. Believing Zenos to be a defense mage, she wonders if he could fully regenerate an arm if he mastered healing spells as he does defense ones. Zenos was about to answer, but the officer cuts him off, stating that only a saint or a high-level secret healer could accomplish that. Krishna says this because she caused that kind of damage to Zofia, the tornado, in a fight, but when she saw her in the slum with her henchmen, her arm was intact. Therefore, she believes that someone capable of such regeneration would definitely have enough respect to be listened to in the community. Anyway, the officer promises to start her real investigation tomorrow and vows to arrest this agitator. Zenos asks why the woman feels so threatened by the slums, then Krishna reveals that her mother was killed by someone living there. Her mother was a deeply kind person who visited the slums daily to feed the hungry. When she was killed, they said it happened when her wedding ring was stolen. Although she saved many from hunger, in her final moment, there was no one to save her. For this reason, Krishna decided to become an invincible heroine who would bring justice to criminals and prevent this from happening to anyone else. With this in mind, she became the youngest deputy commander in the history of the Royal Knights, and her track record at the institution earned her the nickname Iron Rose. Many use this nickname to accuse the woman of being too harsh, but the truth is different. Her face, according to her, is like an iron mask, as she has found it difficult to smile since her mother died. The next day, Zenos attends to Zofia, after Krishna had said she would only return in the evening. Carmilla comments that the officer's story is not so uncommon, for when you live 300 years, you are sure to see many cases where a person's life was turned upside down for various reasons. That said, she asks about the flag, and the clinic owner believes he will take it down from the ceiling for now. Then, while he was healing the tornado, she was going to mention that one of her subordinates saw an officer of the Royal Knights, but as soon as she says this, Krishna herself suddenly appears in the clinic. Immediately, the two draw their weapons and take up combat positions. Carmilla notes that Zenos looks like a husband caught cheating, while Lily shouts that Zofia just got lost and ended up there. Zofia takes the opportunity to confirm the elf's version. Then Krishna asks what happened to the caterpillar's arm, believing it was the mediator who healed it, this element that gathers criminals to threaten the residents of the community. In a mocking manner, Zofia teaches the knight that she can also find criminals in all social classes. Moreover, since she investigates child trafficking, she should know that the scheme's boss is an aristocrat. Krishna replies that the network of this illegal trade is concentrated in the slum. Then the caterpillar tells her that it is to prevent the trails from reaching Calendar, the real culprit. The deputy commander does not believe it, as Calendar is a philanthropist passionate about educating orphans, but the tornado did not expect that this human would care about what she said. Anyway, it's clear that Krishna's mistake is being deceived by appearances, and she reveals that the mediator is the opposite of that, having never judged the people of the slums for who they are, and just saves those who really need it. As much as she hates to admit it, Zofia is sure he would save the deputy commander too, because unlike her, he does not have this ridiculous sense of justice that thinks all evil comes from the slum. That said, Zeno steps in front of Krishna's gun and confesses that Zofia is his patient, as he is the mediator. The woman doubts it, as the mediator is a master of healing magic, while the boy's specialty is defensive magic, and it's impossible to master two different schools at such a high level. Zenos explains that he is not a master in either, but that the two are quite similar in essence. Krishna still does not believe it, but as Zenos has shown support for the semi-humans and the mediator, she decides to base herself elsewhere, as she cannot tarnish her reputation as a perfect heroine alongside people like these. Then, she goes to Lord Calendar and highlights that there has been a lot of activity from thieving lizards in this area lately, and her intention is to increase local security. So it would be good if Calendar and his noble colleagues were more cautious. As part of this, the officer wishes to conduct a security assessment at the Lord's mansion. Calendar sees no problem, but confesses that he would like to be notified beforehand, but Krishna assures him that a surprise inspection would be more effective in checking the usual level of security. Thus, the deputy commander gains permission to start her analysis, and reflects that Calendar was pointed out by the tornado as being the leader of the illegal child trade, but she feels she is wasting her time there. Soon after conducting this inspection, she reveals that the man's security is quite strict, but if she had to point out a flaw in it, it would be the distribution. Calendar asks what that means, then the woman evades the question and asks to use the bathroom before leaving. On her way there, she ponders that Calendar is somewhere in the upper middle echelon of the aristocracy, so it's strange the size of his guard. Additionally, there is the distribution of soldiers around the mansion, as there are far more guards at the back than at the front entrance. Thinking about this, Krishna takes a look at the back of the residence and finds a redoubt with a staircase leading underground, then descends into that dark place until she finds children locked in a chain. She assures them that she is the heroine who will save these children, until she is hit by a shot in her back. In a dramatic turn, Calendar appears with a magical pistol and remarks that the Royal Knight's weapons are quite powerful, perfect for intimidating children. With that, he fires at Krishna again, teaching the officer that her job is to stay quiet and keep the poor in line. At this moment, Iron Rose asks the children for forgiveness, as it seems she won't be able to get them out of there. In her final moments, she thinks of her mother and how she failed to be the heroine she had promised. However, Zofia arrives alongside Zenos, and the doctor jests that this house call is going to cost quite a bit. The Lord questions who these people are, but Zenos assures him that he's just an ordinary healer, and Zofia explains that she merely showed the way to this guy. Knowing no one would complain if he killed a lizard woman from the slums, Calendar orders Tornado to lie down. But as Zenos lets out a mocking sigh, the Lord shoots him and bursts into laughter. However, the healer's defensive magic protects him from the impact, allowing him to gradually approach and send the shooter into a panic. When one pistol runs out of ammo, the noble draws another but ends up tripping over himself and falls dead to the ground. Zenos picks up the pistol that was tossed near him and points it at the Lord, who questions how an inferior being dares to do this to a noble. Zenos replies that if you're going to shoot at people, you should be prepared to take a bullet yourself. Seeing that this guy means business, Calendar offers whatever it takes to be spared. Zenos admits he holds no grudge against this man, having just met him, but he was really annoyed that he shot at him. Calendar begs for forgiveness as if his noble status made his apology worth more than usual, which only makes the healer more impatient, making it clear that there's someone else the man really should be apologizing to. Since Calendar doesn't get it, Zenos shoots the noble for having kidnapped his future clients. The bullet creates a repulsive effect, merely tossing the target and tearing his clothes in a humiliating manner, and the limiter that the shooter activated ensures the shot isn't lethal. After all, Zenos believes it's not his duty to judge this criminal. Meanwhile, Krishna is certain this is her end and asks the boy to report everything that happened to the Order of the Royal Knights. Having said that, Zenos confesses it's rather embarrassing to see Iron Rose give up like this, and while healing the woman, he tells her not to be shocked when the bill for the consultation arrives at her house. Astonished by the man's ability, Krishna emotionally highlights that he is a hero, but he replies that he's just an underground healer with a rundown clinic. After being healed, she laments that she isn't the perfect heroine she thought she was, and Zenos tells her that there's no such thing as perfection, as people who fight for something will get hurt, one way or another. Then, when that happens, it's Zenos' job to make sure they don't die. Nevertheless, he points out that Krishna is a heroine to certain people there. When the woman realizes this, the children ask if the heroine is still there, and this moves her. Iron Rose thought her mother was just a poor victim, but her eyes always sparkled when she fed the street children. Indeed, she was a heroine to those boys, even if she was clumsy, forgetful, and irritable at times. Despite her many flaws, Krishna's mother was her daughter's heroine. Later, Zophia's subordinates remove the children from the underground, and she leaves with Zenos before the royal guard arrives. Before leaving, Krishna asks why the doctor came to save her, and he confesses that he did it because the lady wouldn't be able to pay her bill if she were dead. Hearing this, the officer laughs as she hadn't in a long time, acknowledging that this difficulty is one of her many flaws. Check out these videos appearing on your screen and subscribe so you don't miss the next part.